Thanks for your support, and we'll see you at noon on January 28th.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And I feel like we ought to have some kind of roll of the drums or something like that, because on the line with me right now is the famous. Did you like that, Rocky?
I like that.
Okay.
I'm chuckling over here. Thank you very much.
Wait a second. I know what we're gonna do. There you go. Does that make you feel more at home? All the applause.
Oh yes, thank you. Now that's
okay. So
back in the stadium. Yes.
Well, it is always a pleasure and delight to talk to you, and I'm humbled to have Mr. Rocky Bleier on America's Web Radio. What else can I say? And he's going to be talking to us about this event coming up, and we've got Joe DeLapp and Jim Eberly in the studio with us, and they're going to be holding up some of the things that are going to be auctioned off. Joe's probably going to throw something at me, Rocky, but it's my understanding that you're donating a one of your shirts from when you played for Pittsburgh, one of your jerseys. My question is, did you wash it?
It was clean, sanitized.
Well, I thought maybe
you have no worries about getting any diseases that I know of.
I thought, I had this picture in mind that you'd be like Mean Joe Green and just take it off and hand it to somebody.
Well, I did. I handed it off to Jim Eberly, and Jim's handing it off to Joe, and Joe's handing it off to you, and so that's great.
And it walked in the studio all by itself. Anyway, we're glad to have you, Rocky, and we've gotten so many comments on the fact that you've been on, and thank you very much. And your spots are just absolutely great talking about the event coming up. With that being said, I'm going to go to, whoops, I don't know what happened there. You still there, Rocky?
I'm here.
Okay, I'm not sure what that was, but I knew something or the other. Anyway, I'm going to hand it off to Joe right now. And, Joe, you got some comments.
Yeah, I thought it'd be good just to establish that Rocky, Lee Greenwood, and C.C. Winans, and a cast of others are going to be joining us on January 28th, that's Thursday, for this Warriors for Hope event that we're holding. And Jim's going to be talking more about the auction and then on the radio today. And then Rocky and I are also going to give you some interesting facts about the two charities that are behind the Warriors for Hope.
I'm sorry if you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
But
are you having trouble?
Joe went completely off the radar.
Well,
I have no contact with audio.
Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. But there's two charities, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Most people know about St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And then another group, Warrior to Citizen, which deals with veterans and the issues that they bring home with them after they are out of the service. Both of these groups, both the St. Jude people, the kids that go to St. Jude, and the Warriors to Citizen folks, all suffer from long-term medical or psychological issues. And so we're trying to raise money with this event that Rocky has been been just absolutely wonderful helping us to raise money for these people that need our help. So we're going to tell you today more about the auction and some of the items that we have, as David said, and we'll also give you some fun facts about the two charities. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention: if you want to know more about, the event and the auction itself, go to warriorsforhope.events. So it's Warriors, the number 4, Hope.events. Again, Warriors with the number 4, Hope.events. Warriorsforhope.events. I think we're trying to get Rocky back right now. Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about the auction? What kind of things do we have, and what's the value?
Rocky, Joe, okay?
Can you hear me, Rocky?
Joe, speak.
Can you hear me, Rocky?
Yeah, very softly.
Can you hear me, Rocky?
Yeah, but it's very softly, guys.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Rocky?
What'd you say? Do I like you any better now?
Okay, everybody should be okay right now.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Hear me better?
Right.
Rocky to get
Yeah.
a little background on that.
Okay.
All right, Joe, go ahead.
Okay, so what I thought we'd do next is maybe we get a top line of the auction from Jim here.
Yeah, what we've done is we've got the auction. It started last Monday, the 18th, and we've got a total of 90 items, and it's a variable number or a variance in terms of sports, travel, movie, professional business, and other items. We got 26 items associated with the sports memorabilia. We've got 10 associated with travel and adventure, and we've got 7 with movie memorabilia, and then 10 with business. So it's a really good item with our auction. We have a valuation of about $90,000 in terms of fair market value for that auction. And like I said, it consists of about 90 items. So we're looking forward. We've got a number of bids already. We got a number of bidders who signed up already. So we're looking for some good activity there.
And again, you can go to warriorsforhope.events and you can look for the sign up for the auction there, and you can start bidding right now. Bidding goes through when, Jim?
Bidding goes through 5 p.m. on the 29th of January. So it's one day after the virtual event. It'll be closed at 5 p.m. that next Friday.
And how do they get onto the event?
Okay, again, they can go to warriorsforhope.events. It's warriors with the number 4, hope.events.
Great. And Rocky, I know you're going to be involved with some of the auctioning or the time during that it's going on. Have you got someone in secret going to be bidding for items? Rocky,
Yeah.
have you got
Sorry
some?
for that question.
Have you got someone that's going to be bidding for you?
Well, for bidding for me, of course, it'll probably be me. Yeah, so I'm going to get on board and see how we're doing and see what. I mean, there's some great buys out there that we have Warriors for Hope in the auction, so people should really take a look at what's available. You know, because no matter where you go, this is a time where, you know, if you're looking, you can get pretty good deals on auctions like this, and all that money, you know, goes to a great cause, and of course that's helping to support St. Jude's Hospital and Warriors for Citizen, and so it'll be a great experience going online virtually. You know, it's not as if you even have to be there. You know, you just go online and see how it's going, and then you go, oh, okay, fine, I can bid a little bit more here, and this is a great price, or, you know, this is great. This is something I always wanted to get, and so it'll be available on the auction. So that's it. That's the great part. So I'm going to be there. I'm going to check in and see how it's going through the week, and then mark my products that I want to see if I can get a bid in, and why. So that's my approach to this virtual auction that's taking place.
Well, we'll be watching for you, Rocky. Okay.
Okay. I'll be there.
And associated with what Rocky just said is to facilitate the strategic planning for the bidding. We've enabled a PDF to be downloaded, and the PDF contains all 90 of the items. So what we'll do is, if you go to the Warriors for Hope events, and that's warriorsforhope.events, you go to that and you can download the PDF, print it out, and then sit down with yourself over a glass of wine or with your spouse, and figure out a strategy in terms of what you want to go for, because as Rocky indicated, there are a lot of really good steals here. So,
And you know, back many years ago, I used to love going to auctions anyway, and they're fun. And this is going to be a fun experience for everyone. And you know, Rocky, we do a lot with veterans and a lot of shows, and you know, the importance of warriors to citizens can't be overemphasized. They are a wonderful group, and so many men and women come back needing help in transitioning back from being a warrior back to being a civilian. And it can be a very hard transition, and we've talked about it a lot on different shows that we do here for veterans. And also, obviously, St. Jude's. My goodness. I marvel at what St. Jude's has done and what they're doing.
So we said that we would try to share some interesting facts about the two charities, so people have a better idea of who they're donating to and where it's going to. A lot of people don't know that St. Jude has to raise more than $1 billion a year to operate the hospital, and there's additional money on top of that, maybe of another $400 to $500 million that's done for research, and it comes from generous donors. It does not coming from the government. There's some grants that we get that are maybe less than 20% of that, more than $1 billion that has to be raised, but most donations are under $40. So you can do the math there. I can't do it in my head right here, but you can do the math. How you get $1 billion to $1.5 billion divided by $40 there's a lot of donors. In fact, I think it's close to about 12 million donors that St. Jude has every year. Now, one of the reasons we raise as much money is there's families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food. I mean, the families that go there and the children that are treated never pay a thing, because we want all a family should have to worry about is keeping their child alive. St. Jude treats well over 8,500 children a year at the hospital, but it treats many more children around the world where they work in conjunction with the doctors wherever they are. The treatments for pediatric cancer also can last up to 3 years or more, and it costs an average patient about $425,000 if you were to go to a pay-for hospital. What family can afford $425,000 to pay for something like that? And that's why St. Jude raises the money so that no family has to pay for that.
Joe, you also mentioned to me earlier that St. Jude's, now known to a lot of people, is a feeder system for a lot of the children's hospitals around the world. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, the interesting thing is the research that's done at St. Jude, they do 4 times as much research as everybody around the world. And they share that research. If you combine everybody around the world, there's 4 times as much research published from St. Jude than everybody else combined. And as a result, the protocols that are made for pediatric cancer originate at St. Jude. Now they're given to all these different hospitals, feeder hospitals that you mentioned. And so St. Jude's working with almost every hospital around the world when it comes to pediatric care for cancer.
And I thought that interesting because I had a couple of people say, well, I'm giving to a local hospital. And then when Joe gave me that insight, I went back to them and said, well, you're really giving to that local hospital, but you're putting more multiplier behind it because St. Jude is providing that down to those feeder hospitals. So it may not be a primary, but you definitely have secondary and tertiary benefits from that donation to St. Jude. So I think that was interesting.
Thank you for bringing that point up, Jim. Rocky, can you give us maybe a quick fact?
Well,
on
I was listening, and so one of the things too is that what works so well with St. Jude's Hospital and Warriors to Citizen, and especially this cause, Warriors for Hope, because the whole basis is a family structure of creating hope. People may not think about it in that regards. But it is when you have a child that is diagnosed with cancer, or and I mean, you try as a parent the best you can, with all the resources that you can, to be able to, I suppose, help make that transition, no matter what the outcome may be. But at that moment in time, there is a lot of stress, worry, concern, and it takes a toll on not only the individual, not only the child, but more importantly the parents and that family structure. And it's the same way with Warriors to Citizens and transitions with military, in what their experience has been, especially in combat, coming back, especially today when we have all volunteer an army, and you have multiple deployments to places around the world, especially in the Middle East. And so that can take a toll. And ultimately, a mental set has come in, and it's really all about the family when things start to fall apart. And so we have to be able to focus on the long-range programs for our not only in our family structure, but not only for our soldiers, but also for first responders. Because as we think about all this pressure and fear that takes place, and the trauma that happens, that's internalized, ultimately, I become less involved, within my family, or I take it out on them, things that I don't understand or reasons why, and so so these programs are very important. Warriors to Citizens specifically, same as St. Jude, does not cost the family and or the soldier anything, and it's to come, and it's provided by professionals. It's not a one and done deal. It's over a period of time, over months of follow-up and availability, because of technology we have today. So we can do that through Zoom, Skype, and have virtual relationships that are built. So it becomes very important. The ultimate result is all, and what we're trying to do is to take care of the individual, the family, the structure around that family, and it doesn't happen overnight. So there's a trust that comes. There is not one cookie stamped program that helps.
Rocky,
development. And that's what we are trying to present.
Rocky,
with Warriors to Citizen.
I always liked the old American Indian expression, until you've walked a mile in my Moxicans, and you certainly had your issues when you came back from Nam, and at that point there wasn't a Warriors to Citizens group, I don't believe. And I think what they're doing, we interview so many veterans, and what they're doing, I think, has been needed for, since the Revolutionary War, I would assume. But it is a great organization, and then combining with St. Jude's, that's like putting the icing on the cake. And this event coming up with you, and Lee Greenwood's going to be there, and it's just, I get excited just thinking about it. But going back to Warriors to Citizens, when you came back, did you have a need for something like that?
So let's put this into a perspective. So, latter part of the 60s, the Vietnam War, not a popular war. The individual soldier, unfortunately, was identified with that conflict by the American people, and because they did not like the conflict, they did not like the soldiers, and so the soldiers had no respect, and they were spat upon, thought less of, because they had served over in Vietnam, and so that soldier in total came back, had to repress their feelings, try to get along with their lives as best possibly they could, coming back, going back to school or getting a job, raising a family, and so on, and no one had talked about it. There were no outlets to be able to have these kinds of discussions and how it affects. So you just, as an individual soldier, you just repressed all those feelings. They didn't talk about it with the family. There's, as you well know, many stories about, Dad never talked about his experience. We never had that kind of discussion. He just clammed up and so on. There were no outlets for that soldier, such as American Legion or the VFW at that moment in time, to be able to be with one another to talk about whatever feelings you may go, or just have some camaraderie.
As we've learned quite well, is that, and I'll put you on the spot, Rocky. Do you have one veteran friend that can tell one story only? Once you get them cranked up, they're gonna let you have it with about 25 or more stories. Every place from basic to where they were in Nam and what they were doing with their shirt off. So they'll all have their stories, and we also, and I'll ask you your opinion of this, but we also on our shows will ask the veteran to put his son or daughter or grandkids on his knee and on his lap and tell him about his experience in the military. And it doesn't have to be a gory story at all. It's just a story. I met my friend so-and-so, or this or that, whatever it is. But really today, our veterans are becoming our history books. And a lot of information is being left out of our history books, which is a shame, but these stories need to be passed on. Would you agree?
I agree with you. I agree with you 100% every time I get a chance to see a veteran, or if we talk about it, is that it's just that. You have to be able to tell your stories. And you don't have to tell them in a book. You don't have to tell them in a tape. You just can tell them to your family, to your grandkids. Because ultimately it becomes part of our history and becomes part of the family structure. So I always make this comparison, to a locker room. Okay, and a locker room is a locker room, whether it be in junior high or high school or college. As you progress through your playing days, whatever it is, it's still the locker room.
Unless you have Terry Bradshaw in there, correct?
That's right. We all have locker room stories of one nature or another, and it's in this case, it's the same thing. So you don't have to be in combat to have a story. You don't have to, fight our deadly enemies. No, it's you have the same experience going through basic training, going through deployment, going wherever it might be, the job that you had or the people that you met, or the experience that you come across, and that all becomes part of that story that needs to be told. That part of that story becomes very, very important in the creation of family and family resiliency, and to understand if down the road all of a sudden you have you got a mental health problem, meaning just you all of a sudden you get a flash, and all of a sudden you're back in combat, or whatever it is, post-traumatic stress disease, and then but if you don't have a basis in which to understand what may take place, then it becomes very difficult, and it has an effect on family and relationships. So
Rocky,
that's what we're trying to accomplish at the Warriors to Citizen programs.
Rocky, I want to get back to what we're doing here, and we've got to remind people that they need to go to warriorsforhope.events, and this is going to be January the 28th, and please put that on your calendar. And Jim, I think it's about time. I'm going to see if Brett can come back in the room as well and show us some of the items that are going to be auctioned off. Do you mind?
Yeah, no, don't mind at all. I'd like to start off with, we've got one that we like to feature. It's called our VIP Memphis trip for family of four. And what that consists of is a private jet from PD, for those who are not familiar with it, it's Peachtree DeKalb Airport. So it's a corporate jet. We'll pick them up and fly them to Memphis. You don't have to hassle with the airport downtown. You don't have to worry about flying in a packed airplane. So it's a very prestigious and a very nice way to start the trip. Then you stay 2 nights at the iconic The Peabody Hotel, deluxe accommodation. That's right in the heart of the city, and I think a lot of people know about the Peabody because the Peabody Hotel is the one where they put the red carpet out and the ducks get off the elevator from the roof, walk to the fountain, swim around the fountain for about a half an hour. They put the red curtain back or the red carpet back, and the ducks walk back to the elevator and go back up to the roof. So it's an entertaining, very entertaining. With that room, you also get free breakfast. And then there's the VIP tour for St. Jude's Hospital, St. Jude's Research Hospital, and it's a private tour. That area is not normally seen by the public. And then we also have a dinner at the historic, and again, if you've been there, the Rendezvous, which is the one down in the basement, but it's been there since 1946, and it's the best barbecue in Memphis. So that's a very, very good package. We list it there as priceless, but it's got a fair market value around $10,000. So that's a real steal if you can sneak in there.
We fly back too.
Did you catch that, Rocky?
Yeah, I caught that. But I've been there, so I've gone through. What a great hotel that is, and you're right. It's got great history. Whoever gets that package will love it, and because it's one of those things that you'll never forget, and it's a memory of Memphis and what's happening.
The other thing I'd like to bring up is that for the music lovers, we've got a total of 5 signed guitars in this auction. We have a Vince Gill, who is the member of the Eagles since 2017. He signed an acoustic guitar, which we have in studio here.
It worked.
So that's the Vince Gill guitar. We also have a guitar signed by Riley Green, and maybe many people don't know about Riley Green, but he's the Country Music Award New Male Artist of the Year 2020. So he was kind enough to send us a guitar as well, signed. And then the topper of this whole thing is Lee Greenwood. Lee's gonna personally autograph when the winner is announced. He's going to sign that person's name and personally autograph the one electric guitar. And then for the winner of the second one, it's an acoustic guitar, which will also be personally autographed with that individual, the winner's name on it. So those are really key items there that I think people will really go after.
I totally agree. And then we've got some jerseys, right, from somebody or something.
Well, as Rocky mentioned, he's got his autographed jersey, which is really neat because he's also indicated on the 2 numeral the 4 Super Bowl victories that he accomplished as well. So maybe, Rock, you can share some a story of one of those bowls.
Of course, I could take over the whole program and tell you about playing in the Super Bowls and which ones were important and which ones I liked the most. Which ones I remember the most.
Now,
yeah. So
Joe DeLapp mentioned that you may be sending in a pair of old socks too. Is that correct, or is that just a rumor?
They got holes in them. If they don't mind, they got holes in them. But I'll throw in some socks.
Well, this is a holy organization, so that works. Okay, and we've got a football there. You want to explain that, Jim?
There's a little local flavor there. We thought that was a neat thing. This is a football autographed by the Baltimore Ravens linebacker corps, and that's significant because it's a pretty famous group there. But it also has a local flavor, as I mentioned. The linebacker coach is a gentleman named Michael McDonald, and Mike is a graduate of Centennial High School and played football and baseball there, and then went on and was doing minor coaching, but he's been a member of the Ravens for 7 years, and he was kind enough to get their autographs, and I asked him to sign it as well because in my mind and a lot of other people's minds, he's going to be a head coach in about 7 years. So that's also there, and we have got one from Joe Theismann as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. This is going to be quite an event. January the 28th, Warriors 4, the number 4, Hope, .events. And we hope that everybody is getting the word out, and we'll go to Warriors, the number 4, Hope, Events. Joe?
Well, I thought we'd go back to some fun facts about the two charities again, and then we'll come back again with Jim, and he can tell us more about some of the things that are in the auction that's coming up. St. Jude is where doctors send their toughest cases. To get into St. Jude, you actually have to have a doctor say, "We need your help," which most doctors will do. But they typically send the toughest cases to St. Jude because St. Jude has the world's best survival rates for some of the most aggressive forms of childhood cancers. I mentioned before that St. Jude creates more clinical trials for cancer, for pediatric cancer, than any other children's hospital. And it's really kind of a laboratory. What Danny Thomas did in 1962 when he formed St. Jude, he wanted the doctors to be right there with the patients so that they could learn from the patients and get instant feedback on how the kids were responding to their treatment. He went even to the degree that the hospital has one cafeteria, and the doctors eat there with the kids as well. So they were getting feedback. If the kids got sick, eating food or something, the doctors would know, what was going on with the kids as well. So it's really an amazing laboratory per se of how science is put together. And then, as I said earlier too, St. Jude takes all these learnings, they put it together in clinical trials and write-ups, and they share that with everybody. And so when there's a cure or improved treatment that is found at St. Jude, it's passed along almost immediately to the network that Jim had brought up earlier.
Rocky, I'm sure a lot of folks know that you have an extremely busy schedule, but how did you get involved with Warriors to Citizens and then Warriors for Hope?
Well, actually, I got involved with Warriors to Citizens when it first started about 10 years ago. And it's like, I should say this, and it's like everything else, that somebody's got to introduce you to what has taken place or have an inroad. And George Perlis was the head coach at the time for Michigan State. He was an assistant coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a great guy. But now he's at Michigan State, and one of the board members was a Michigan State grad, played there, and asked George if he would contact me. So I get a call from George, and he said, "Hey, would you be interested in talking to these people about Warriors and Citizens 10 years ago?" And of course, it had to do with military, and I said yes. So that's where I got first involved, and then obviously very interested in what they were trying to do and the impact that they have on current families, military families, and then morphed into first responders. But that's how I first got into it, and then of course this relationship with St. Jude's and come up with created this idea of Warriors for Hope, because really that's one business that we're all in, and St. Jude is specifically, that sense of hope that there might be an answer, that there's something we can cling on for not only the patient but also for the family. And it's the same thing with the military, is there some avenue that can help me with my either marriage or the problems that I face with post-traumatic stress, and be there. And so it's worked out very well. I'm very happy to have been involved all these years to see where it's growing and the impact that we that it has. And you just got to put it into the idea is that really there's like 40,000 wounded warrior programs within our country. I mean, every little community has one, and so on. And what you're trying to figure out is what has the biggest impact for a long-term, long-range change in our habits and how we approach and the problems that we face within our family structure. And so, if the divorce rate is 50% within our within our society, in the military, after one tour of combat and so on, I mean, there's a great spike that goes up, and so all of a sudden we're looking at 70% or 80% of divorce rates. And so if we can lessen that, and we can, get it just back to normalcy, and so on the success that we've had over these 10 years, that 80% of the marriages have stayed together.
That's fantastic.
Of the people that have come through our program. I think that's a great rate, and only 2.4% of that population was the divorce rate. So we were able to, move that down drastically.
Rocky,
and that's the biggest thing, is just keeping that family together.
We also have found that many of the vets, and certainly, and when we honor vets, we also honor their families, because not only is the man or woman of the household deployed, but the whole family is really deployed. And what we found too is that veterans, when they are given their DD 214 or whatever, and they're out, but they don't necessarily know the potential of the benefits. And so we're starting a separate show called Veteran Benefits, and this is for the veterans and for the families. A lot of families, if they've lost someone in combat, they don't know that they have rights and they have benefits as well. And so we're going to be trying to inform them about that. And what would be interesting is to have a big name veteran football player. No, I'm just teasing you, Rocky. But I hope you understand that we are working with the vets, and that there are a lot of veterans that just have no idea about the benefits that they have waiting on them, and certainly their families don't. So that starts. Well,
that's true. I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting psychological program, only in the fact that the veterans, whether they put in 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years, or so on, is that they're coming to the end of their term, and they're decided to leave the military. In that decision, what they've decided to do is leave the military. And so as you go and you process out of the military, you go through what your benefits are and so on. But that goes in one ear and out the other, because your only focus is getting back home, starting another life, getting on with it, and so on. And not until you kind of need it do you go, oh man, what are my benefits here? And then you have to struggle through that and going back to the VA and so on. But yeah, you're right. So that's a great show, just to understand what those benefits are, because as you were saying, I think the majority of veterans don't really know, and thus the family doesn't know if something should happen to that spouse. So,
and I think Jim needs to come in here for a minute.
Yeah, what I'd like to also highlight a couple more of the auction items, if I may.
Sure.
One of the other key treasures here, or secret treasures here, is we've got 2 separate RCI vacation adventures, which means there's 1 week accommodation plus 2 Southwest airline tickets in this package. And if you're familiar with timesharing, you get what's called trading power, which I equate to a currency. So you've got a currency of 15 trading points, which is pretty high. And what you can do is you can then go to a catalog that's online. It's got 4,300 affiliated resorts in 110 countries. And it's anywhere from beachfront to mountain or adventure themes, etc. You get online, access the catalog, and choose what you want. It's a Saturday to Saturday booking, and again, it typically can accommodate between 4 to 6 people in these various locations, resorts. And as I said, you get 2 Southwest airline tickets, and each one of these is valid for round-trip ticket, operated and published on any of the Southwest routes. And it includes everything in the United States, its territories, and including Puerto Rico. So that's a pretty rich package, and there are 2 of those online. 2 of those in the auction item. Another one, which is not as big in terms of value, but I think it's big in terms of esteem, we have a book. It's the Medal of Honor book, and it recognizes and honors the recipients of the Medal of Honor up to the George Bush administration. But the key thing here is it is it's the book, and it's got the DVD associated with it, but it's got 8 autographs from recipients. Now this has been accumulated over 3 years, and it's in pristine condition, and we've got 2 of those books. But we've got them, and we sent that around the country to get autographs from 8 recipients of the Medal of Honor. So I think you'll find another rich treasure in that one.
That's great, Jim. Rocky, we've got a few minutes to go, and you were saying about how you had gotten involved and what you all have done over the years, and I just think that's remarkable. And we're gonna keep running promos for Warriors to Citizens, and after the event, so people again will know what's available. And I know you all aren't trying to keep it a secret by any means, but I wouldn't, quite honestly, I wasn't even aware of it until they came to me, and we talked, and certainly I support it. And I would like to be in a position that we didn't need Warriors to Citizens, actually, but I don't think that's ever going to change, unfortunately. And we'll all, and I'd go one step further too. Warriors to Citizens doesn't necessarily have to mean that, like you said a minute ago, that you've been on the battlefield. It can be just coming back from basic or deployment away from your family and coming back, and it's still a transition. And I get sick at 2 facts. One fact is only 1% of the nation ever serves, and the second is that 1 out of 4 homeless are veterans, and both of those are obnoxious numbers to me.
Or, and rightly so. So, part of it is that the general population doesn't understand veterans or veteran issues and or veteran structures, what happens within within the family structure, and or what actually takes place during their period of serving. So that's hard to relate to. And I talk about that specifically, in transitions and how difficult it is at times for military to make the transition into the civilian world because of the attitude that civilian people have about the military, because they don't understand. And they don't understand how we make, how I can hire you because your skill set really isn't like what I'm looking for. And usually if you're working with, and I hate to do this, but with HR somewhere, you're going to find somebody who's probably in their 30s who have never served and don't understand. So, and this is an example, an extreme example, but I'm just saying, so what if you're a special ops sniper, and you've had 20 years of doing special ops, so how does that experience translate into secular experience for my company over here? How do I and if I don't understand leadership roles, if I don't understand decision-making roles, et cetera, then it doesn't, that's not a fit. Well, I'm sorry, because you don't understand what the soldier is offering to you. So those are things that need to be broken down and in transitions to be able to be understood. And it's getting better. It's not 100% yet, but corporations in this country are taking a stronger look at in fulfilling those needs.
Absolutely.
And so, and what you're talking about becomes so very important.
Would you agree to this? If you go into the military, there is no transition problem in that DI, your drill sergeant, takes care of any transition problems.
And everybody goes through the same transition. I don't care who you are, whether you're a professional football player or you just dropped out of high school, and you're all on the same level, and you go through the same thing.
And you get the same haircut.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you get the same haircut.
Oh, that's right. You get the same haircut, the same uniform. You get the same bunk. You get the same food. You get yelled at the same, and so it's a great equalizer. And I think that just becomes very important in the development of human beings. That no one's more special than the other one. We all have a job to do. We all got one another's back, and we all go through kind of the same experience as you're coming up through those ranks, and whatever your career might be within the military and wherever you go. And even if you come back, and you get out, but you want to stay in the reserve, and so it's just continuation and support of that mindset. And and I think that becomes so very important in the world of commerce today, in industry, in jobs, that there's a certain amount of discipline, hard work, understanding what needs to be done, flexibility to be able to get it done, and being able to take charge of a task or an operation, because that's all you've ever done was taking charge of and making sure that it gets done. Because if it doesn't get done, then you got a first sergeant that's going to be up your butt.
Rocky, we need to go back to Joe for a comment.
Yeah, and I want to first say one thing about Rocky. Rocky knows what he's talking about here because, as you mentioned, he was a Vietnam vet. What he's so modest about is he's also a decorated Vietnam vet. He was wounded, and it almost cost him his football career. In fact, his doctors told him he probably would not play again. And Rocky, if you want to maybe briefly tell a little bit about that story.
Well, it's just, I think, yes, okay, fine. So I got wounded twice, and the prognosis was because of the damage done to, I got hit, I got shot, and then I got hit with a grenade. And the grenade did the most damage is within my right foot and right leg. Anyway, so the prognosis was that, I'll have a normal life, but I won't be able to play again. And so, you go through these steps, of you're first injured. I don't care whether it is, it's like, why me? Okay, and families go through the same thing. It's like my child has cancer. Why me? And then you go, why me? Now where am I going to go? What's going to happen in my life? And I go through that machination. And sometimes you need an outside force to be able to put it in perspective. In my case specifically at that time was that in my ward there was I shared the story. There was a triple amputee. And on his way to therapy, he'd be in his wheelchair, and he'd stop, and he stopped at my bed, and he said, "Hey, how you doing?" He had this great beat, and he said, "How you doing? You look better today than you did yesterday, because you didn't look good yesterday when you got here. Now we got some good docs. We'll take care of you. We'll get you out of here, and I'll see you back in the real world." Now I thought, wow, just that input made a difference to me. Here's somebody that could be embittered with his lot in life, but yet he had a great positive attitude about what his future may be. Anyway, so then along the way, you need a support mechanism. I know when I asked the doctors about my ability to come back, and he said, no, you won't be able to do that. And it was the first time that they said that. It just sucked my hope out of me. And then shortly thereafter, I got a postcard in the mail with 2 lines on it. It said, "Rock, team's not doing well. We need you, Art Rooney." So again, it was if somebody needs me, it was like somebody cared. And that's all, we have as human beings, is the impact that we can generate with one another, the changes that we can. So that's what St. Jude does. That's what Warrior for Hope does. That's what Warriors to Citizen programs do, is that they create that hope and with the expertise that makes it credible. of where you can go. So, all those lessons in your life, you just, you say, okay, fine. Then you just got to go through the process, and the process isn't necessarily easy. I mean, it's long-term, overcoming injuries, setting goals, having a chance, and so I was very fortunate to come back to an organization that gave me that chance, and they bought me 2 years. And so in that 2 years, you have to do something. You have to get bigger, better, stronger. You have to heal. And then when you do have an opportunity, you got to make the most out of that opportunity. So that's what that whole scenario, did for me. And so, and I look back and I was very fortunate to have that opportunity, but you also have to put the work in and the time and the effort to be able to achieve your goals.
Joe,
I want to I want to take us back to 1962 again. Danny Thomas starts St. Jude. I think Rocky is either a freshman or sophomore at Notre Dame. Later becomes the captain of the national championship team at Notre Dame. But Danny Thomas is trying to find a way of helping these poor kids with cancer, and he wants to attract the best doctors in the world. But he also sees that the underprivileged in particular are not being served, and so he decides to put the hospital in Memphis. And he's trying to find the best doctors in the world. And at the time, this is in the middle of the civil rights movement. But Danny, he was told it was going to break his heart, that what he was trying to do was not going to work. And cancer back then, for these pediatric cancers, it was almost a death sentence for a child. The survival rates were between 5 and 20%. So since that time, led by St. Jude, other people have contributed to pediatric cancer too. We're not the only ones, but led by St. Jude, the overall cancer survival rates are now 80%, which means unfortunately 1 in 5 still die. So we still have a lot more work to do. The worst cancer back then was ALL, and if I could pronounce the medical term here, I would do it, but I would just make a fool of myself. So I'm just going to say ALL. Most people know it as ALL. The survival rate back then was 4%, and today St. Jude has that up to 94%. The thing about what St. Jude does is they're studying the genomes. They do a full genome study of their many of their patients. They find out what treatments worked, what treatment didn't work. And some treatments may work for some children based on their genomes. Some treatments may not. And it's led to not only this increase in success in treating these kids and cures, but it's led to other successes in other areas too, because they really do a full study on these kids. A good example is they were treating a child that had African American child who had sickle cell disease. He also had cancer. And they were treating the child for cancer. They did a transplant, a bone marrow transplant, and lo and behold, not only did the child get cured of cancer, he was cured of a sickle cell disease. So that led to a whole branch at St. Jude of they now have a limited cure for sickle cell disease, which strikes largely African Americans, because of this finding, because they track everything, and they saw that it also cured the child's sickle cell disease. The studies that they're doing, I mentioned this last time we were on, David. You're so gracious to have us back again. Last year they found a cure for bubble boy disease. If people remember that John Travolta the movie where he lives in a bubble because his body can't take the environment, the bugs that are in the environment. They now have a cure for that, so there's I don't know if there's any more bubble boys out there. And it's also led to discoveries in Alzheimer's and all sorts of other areas that St. Jude is probably not well known for, but they've made these cures. So it not only is helping kids, but it's also helping adults. You want to go back to the auction for a minute and do a couple more items?
Sure, a couple more items, and we've only got about 3.5 minutes to go. So,
okay.
Rocky, at least we didn't have the problems today that we had last week.
That's right. That was good.
And if you don't mind, we'd like to get you back on, and I'll give you a call later, and we'll talk about who knows what?
What? Anything.
All right. And Jim?
Okay, I will talk quickly on this one. Next one I want to highlight is we've got a number of wine tasting and beer tastings. The wine tasting is from Total Wine and More, which is a national retailer, and they've given us a $500 value for 20-person wine tasting at any local Total Wine and More retail locations throughout the U.S. So that's a pretty good thing, and it's a
great.
2-hour private wine tasting. On a local basis, there's Elsewhere Brewery, which just started this year. It's located in Grant Park near the Atlanta Beltline, so it's a local treasure and a local attraction. Interesting thing here is the owners, the husband and wife, Sam and Sarah Kasmer. Sam was in the Special Ops 2nd Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. He was obviously in Special Ops. He got injured in a training jump and spent several months in the hospital and then several months thereafter rehabbing. And then he got a medical discharge. He linked up with his fiancee at that time, and they roamed around the world to taste the best beers. He liked beers, and she liked beers, so they went to the United States, Mexico, South America, and Europe. They opened up Elsewhere Brewery in July, and is doing a really great business right now, despite the pandemic. They feature classic European lagers, and they've donated a beer tasting class for 15 people. They're going to conduct a class on beer flavor and aroma perception, and then beer making process, finish with a tasting, and then serve cheese. There's also one in Lawrenceville, which is another one where he's offering a package for 15 people for wine tasting. So those are two ones that are pretty cool. And then the other one is we've got two bottles of Horse Soldiers bourbon in there if anybody wants to bid on that as well. So we're going to keep everybody entertained and liquored up.
And happy campers, huh? Okay, well, again, this has been a great day, and Rocky, as so many people have said, you make every day a great day.
Well, you're kind.
And
He's a class act. He's a class act.
And we thank you for coming on America's Web Radio, and we want to conclude by, again, thanking you for all you do, not only for St. Jude's and Warriors to Citizens, but also many other organizations that you've given your time and talent to. And, there's a difference between loaning your name to an organization and doing something. And, you put your money where your mouth is, and that's whether it's in time or unwashed jerseys or dirty socks with holes in them, whatever it is, you're there and you're giving, and that's a whole lot different from a whole lot of other folks that they'll loan their name to it, but that's where it starts and ends. And Rocky Bleier goes the extra yard.
You've been a class act too, David. We thank you too.
That's right. Yes. For giving us this time and all the shows that we've done. Thank you, David. That's been a great boost to this program. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and we will archive it, and it will be played many times before the 28th. And we look forward to the auction. And once again, our guests, Rocky Bleier, Joe DeLapp, Jim Everly, and we thank you all for coming in, and we look forward to, we're going to do a post-operation after this. We're going to do a post-show about how well it did and what's coming up with St. Jude's and what's coming up with Warriors to Citizens. So with that, we're going to have to close it out. You're listening to America's Web Radio, and Rocky, thank you once again.
You're welcome, David. Thanks, David. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rock.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.